The rain came hard against the windows of Nathan Reed's two-story brick house in suburban Atlanta. Inside, the kitchen lights glowed warm over the dinner table where 6-year-old Leo kicked his legs under the chair, laughing as Nathan guided a spoonful of mac and cheese like an airplane. These dinners had become their ritual, father and son against the world, the only steady rhythm Nathan trusted anymore. He set the spoon down, ruffled Leo's hair, and picked up his buzzing phone from the counter. The screen lit up with Madeline's name, his wife of 8 years, mother of his son. He expected some casual line about working late or checking in. Instead, 11 words stared back at him like a bullet lodged in glass. "Going on a vacation with my ex, don't be jealous." Nathan's jaw tightened, but his face didn't move. Across the table, Leo was humming to himself, chasing noodles with his fork. For the boy's sake, Nathan swallowed the fire pressing against his ribs. His pulse thudded in his neck, steady but heavy. Madeline had just handed him her confession, her betrayal, and her weapon, all wrapped in one text. He didn't reply right away. Instead, he slid the phone into his pocket, picked up his son's plate, and asked, "Want ice cream after this, champ?" Leo's eyes lit up. "Yeah, the chocolate one." Nathan smiled, and though it felt like a mask, he wore it well. He cleaned the table, loaded the dishwasher, and kept his voice even. Every action was deliberate, controlled. His son would not see his father broken, not tonight, not ever. When Leo was tucked into bed an hour later, clutching his dinosaur blanket, Nathan returned to the kitchen, turned off the overhead light, and sat in the dark with only the storm for company. He pulled out his phone again, reread the text. The words didn't sting anymore, they ignited something sharper. He typed a short reply, "Noted. Take care. No anger. No pleading. No questions. Just a period, the kind that ends not just a sentence but an entire chapter." He leaned back in the chair, staring at the rain sliding down the window like veins branching across glass. That text wasn't just a message. It was abandonment, negligence, and, most importantly in the eyes of the law, evidence. Madeline thought she had scored some twisted freedom, flaunting her vacation with Andrew Bennett, the same man who had walked out on his own wife years before. She thought Nathan would sit at home, sulking, too stunned to act. But Nathan had never been that kind of man. He had built this home with his bare hands, stacked overtime hours to pay for it, stood tall against Madeline's family when they sneered at his working-class roots. Now, she had given him the opportunity to turn every sacrifice into leverage. The anger inside him wasn't the wild kind that tears rooms apart. It was cold, steady, like steel heated in a forge until it glowed. He would not explode. He would dismantle. He pulled out a notepad, the same one he used for grocery lists and weekend projects, and began to write. His handwriting was neat, blocky, each letter pressed into the paper like a carpenter's nail. Step 1, lawyer. Step 2, custody. Step 3, bank. Step 4, PI. Each line was underlined twice. Each step was already forming in his mind, precise as gears locking into place. Nathan closed the notepad, stood up, and poured himself a glass of water. He didn't need whiskey. Not tonight. He needed clarity. When he carried the glass to the sink, his reflection stared back at him in the window. A man who refused to crumble, who refused to be humiliated. Upstairs, Leo stirred in his sleep and murmured something about dinosaurs. Nathan climbed the stairs, opened the boy's door, and watched him for a long moment. Everything he was about to do, every call, every move, every ounce of cold vengeance, wasn't about revenge for himself. It was about protecting this boy from a mother who thought family was disposable. He whispered, "Don't worry, son. I've got us." Then he turned off the hallway light, shut the door softly, and went to bed with the storm still hammering outside. For the first time in months, Nathan Reed didn't feel powerless. His wife thought she'd walked out free. In reality, she had just triggered the exact chain of events that would erase her from the life she took for granted. Tomorrow, the war will begin. The sun was barely up when Nathan parked his Chevy outside the downtown office of Robert Hayes. Atlanta's streets still glistened from last night's storm, the morning air thick with humidity. Nathan sat behind the wheel for a moment, hands steady on the cracked leather steering wheel, letting the engine tick as it cooled. He wasn't nervous. Nerves were for men who felt cornered. Nathan felt something else entirely: momentum. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of coffee and polished wood. A secretary with a practiced smile offered him a clipboard. He signed his name with the same deliberate handwriting he had used the night before when outlining his steps. His phone, resting heavy in his pocket, carried the weight of Madeline's words. 11 careless words that would now become the backbone of his strategy. When Robert Hayes stepped into the reception area, he wasted no time with pleasantries. Hayes was a lean man in his 50s, sharp suit, sharper eyes, the kind of lawyer who knew when to charm and when to cut. Nathan liked that about him. "Mr. Reed, come in." Nathan followed him into a corner office lined with books and degrees. The blinds were drawn halfway, filtering the rising sun into stripes across the mahogany desk. Hayes motioned for Nathan to sit, then leaned forward. "What's the situation?" Nathan pulled his phone from his pocket, opened the message, and slid it across the desk. Hayes picked it up, read once, then again. His eyebrows lifted. "She sent this to you directly?" "Last night," Nathan said evenly, "while I was feeding our son dinner." Hayes set the phone down like it was a live grenade. "This isn't just reckless. This is abandonment in her own words. Judges love evidence that is simple." Nathan didn't smile. He only nodded. "What do I need to do?" Hayes leaned back, fingers steepled. "We move fast. The first step is filing for emergency custody. You're the stable parent. She's run off with another man, broadcasted her intent, and left the child in your care. With this text, we've got written proof of her desertion. A judge will eat this up." Nathan felt the slow burn in his chest harden into steel. "Do it." Hayes buzzed his assistant, dictating motions and citing statutes with machine gun precision. Within minutes, papers were drafted, printers whirring in the background. Nathan signed where he was told, his signature firm without hesitation. Every stroke of the pen was a nail in the coffin of the life Madeline thought she could preserve while chasing her ex to Cancun. By early afternoon, Nathan stood in a courtroom that smelled faintly of dust and floor polish. The judge, a gray-haired woman with glasses perched low on her nose, scanned the documents before her. Hayes stood tall at Nathan's side, the text projected on a screen like scripture. "Going on a vacation with my ex, don't be jealous," the judge read aloud. She set the papers down, gaze flicking to Nathan. "Your wife sent this?" "Yes, Your Honor," Nathan said, his voice steady, no hint of rage, just a fact. The judge tapped her pen against the bench once, twice. "Well, Mr. Reed, your wife may consider this a vacation, but the court sees abandonment. Effective immediately, you are granted temporary sole custody of your son. Mrs. Reed will be notified." Hayes inclined his head. "Thank you, Your Honor." The gavel came down with a crack that echoed like thunder in Nathan's chest. It wasn't triumph he felt, it was vindication, clean and cold. He turned and walked out, shoulders square, Hayes beside him. On the courthouse steps, the city buzzing around him, Nathan finally allowed himself one long breath. Leo's future was already shifting, secured by a few pieces of paper and a text message sent in arrogance. Madeline thought she was sipping margaritas poolside, her escape plan flawless. She had no idea she'd already lost the one thing that mattered most. Her son. Hayes clapped him lightly on the shoulder. "You did the right thing, Reed. Now keep your head clear. This is just the start." Nathan nodded. He didn't need the reminder. The plan was already in motion. Custody was step one. Tomorrow he will move to step two. And when Madeline tried to swipe her card on vacation, when she found herself locked out of her own accounts and cut off from every dollar she thought she controlled, she would finally begin to understand. Nathan Reed wasn't the man you betrayed and walked away from. He was the man who would quietly take everything back. The morning sun hit the glass facade of Fulton Trust Bank as Nathan Reed pushed open the heavy doors. He carried no briefcase, no lawyer by his side. just a folded court order in his jacket pocket and the unshakable calm of a man who knew exactly what he was about to do. Inside, the air smelled of leather chairs, printer toner, and old money. Customers waited in line, clutching deposit slips, the low murmur of transactions blending with the occasional clatter of coins. Nathan moved past them all, straight to the front desk. "Good morning, sir. How can we help you?" the young teller asked, her smile practiced. Nathan slid the folded papers across the counter. "I need to see the branch manager. Now." Something in his voice, measured, steady, but sharp as cut glass, made the teller swallow her rehearsed pleasantries. She glanced at the bold black lettering on the documents, then nodded quickly. "One moment, Mr. Reed." Minutes later, Nathan was ushered into a corner office where a man in a navy suit rose from behind a desk. His nameplate read Thomas Keating, branch manager. He extended a hand, but Nathan only set the papers down between them. Keating adjusted his glasses and began to read. His eyes widened slightly. "Emergency custody order," he murmured. "And you're seeking financial protection of assets?" "That's right," Nathan said, his tone flat. "Every joint account is frozen. Every card was canceled. Every online login is revoked. From this moment on, my wife has no access." Keating shifted in his chair. "That's a significant step, Mr. Reed. Are you certain?" Nathan leaned forward, his gaze unblinking. "She abandoned her family for another man. I'm protecting my son's future. So yes, I'm certain." The manager cleared his throat, nodded, and gestured to his assistant. "We'll initiate the freeze immediately. Funds can be transferred to custodial trust accounts in your son's name. That way, she can't contest that you misappropriated anything. It'll be airtight." Nathan signed the forms without hesitation. His signature, firm, bold, spread across page after page, each one severing another tie Madeline thought she still held. When the last document was signed, Keating stacked them neatly and said, "It'll take about 20 minutes to fully lock her access. By the time she tries her first transaction, the system will decline." Nathan stood, adjusting his jacket. "Good. Let her find out in paradise." As he walked out of the bank, the midday traffic of Atlanta roared around him, horns blaring, engines growling. He slipped his hands into his pockets and kept moving, steady and unhurried. He didn't feel joy. Joy was fleeting, shallow. What he felt was a deeper satisfaction. The kind that comes from building a wall brick by brick while your enemy sleeps, unaware they're being boxed in. In his mind, he could see it play out like a scene already written. Madeline, lounging poolside in Cancun, ordering another round of overpriced drinks. She'd reach for her card, swipe it with the smug confidence of someone who believed she was untouchable. Then the decline, again and again. Each attempt was a silent alarm bell that her world was crumbling beneath her. He didn't need to be there to watch it. The image was enough. By the time he returned home, Leo was sprawled on the living room carpet, building towers out of blocks. Nathan crouched down, watching his son's small hands stack each piece with clumsy determination. The boy looked up and grinned. "Dad, look, I made a castle." Nathan smiled, ruffling his hair. "Looks solid, buddy. Strong foundation. That's what matters." Leo nodded, proud of himself. Nathan's chest tightened. Not with grief, not anymore, but with resolve. Every move he made now was for this boy. Madeline had gambled with their family's security, traded stability for some fantasy of romance and freedom. Nathan wasn't about to let Leo pay the price for her recklessness. He stood, the echoes of the bank still in his ears, and looked around the home he had fought to build. It was more than walls and furniture. It was proof of who he was. A man who provided, protected, endured. And now, a man who would dismantle anyone who tried to tear it apart. The phone call was short, sharp, and direct, exactly the way Nathan preferred to handle business. By noon the day after the bank freeze, he was sitting across from James Mitchell in a dimly lit office tucked above a pawn shop on Peachtree Street. Mitchell was an old-school investigator. Late 50s, silver hair cropped close, a face lined like cracked leather. He wore the same brown trench coat year-round, even in the Georgia heat, and kept a bottle of rye in his bottom drawer, though Nathan had never seen him take a drink before sundown. On the walls hung faded photos of Mitchell shaking hands with cops, politicians, even a retired Atlanta Falcons quarterback. But the real proof of his skill wasn't in the pictures. It was in the quiet way he listened, eyes half-narrowed, catching every detail. Nathan slid a plain envelope across the desk. Inside, a printed copy of Madeline's text message, a photo of her passport, and a hotel confirmation email forwarded from their shared inbox. "She's in Cancun," Nathan said, his voice low and deliberate, "with Andrew Bennett, husband of Victoria Caldwell." That name, Caldwell, hung in the air like smoke. Even Mitchell, who'd built a career on keeping his composure, let out a short whistle. Victoria Caldwell's husband? That's a man with too much to lose. "Good," Nathan replied, leaning back in the chair. "Makes it easier." Mitchell drummed his fingers on the desk, thinking, "What do you want? Pictures? Video? Timeline? Everything," Nathan said. "I don't need them for me. I need them for her." He didn't have to explain who her was. Victoria Caldwell wasn't just a woman. She was Atlanta's queenmaker, the type who controlled boardrooms with a look and reduced competitors to ash with a single phone call. If Madeline thought Andrew Bennett was her ticket to a richer life, she was riding shotgun in a car headed straight for a cliff. Mitchell nodded slowly. "Consider it done. I'll put a man on the ground in Mexico by tomorrow morning. You'll have what you need inside a week." Nathan rose, shook the PI's hand, and left without another word. His part was finished, the rest was mechanics. He had set the gears in motion, and soon enough the machine would spit out the proof he needed. The days that followed moved quietly, like the calm before a storm. Nathan kept his routine sharp. Breakfast with Leo, school drop-offs, evenings at the workbench in his garage. On the surface, life looked ordinary, but beneath it all he was counting down. Exactly 6 days later, Mitchell called. "Got something you'll want to see." Nathan drove back to Peachtree Street, climbed the creaking stairs, and stepped into the office. Mitchell was waiting with a manila folder thick enough to choke a filing cabinet. He pushed it across the desk. Nathan opened it. Inside, glossy 8x10s told a story without words. Madeline and Andrew on a balcony, her head thrown back in laughter. Andrew's hand on her waist in a candlelit restaurant. The two of them kissed, oblivious to the world, while palm trees swayed above. Each photograph was a nail hammered deep. Nathan didn't flinch. He turned each page with steady hands, cataloging every image, every timestamp. It wasn't pain that settled in his gut. It was confirmation. Proof that his instincts had been right, that her betrayal wasn't just emotional but physical, shameless, public. Mitchell tapped the last photo with a stubby finger. "These were taken 2 nights ago. They're still there. No doubt about it." Nathan closed the folder. "Good. Package them." Mitchell raised an eyebrow. "You're not keeping them?" "No," Nathan's voice was granite. "They're not for me. They're for the woman who'll know exactly what to do with them." He stood, tucked the sealed envelope under his arm, and walked out of the office into the thick Atlanta heat. The photographs burned against his ribs like live coals, not because they hurt, but because they carried power. And tomorrow he'd deliver that power straight into the hands of Victoria Caldwell. Caldwell Tower rose 30 stories above downtown Atlanta, its glass skin reflecting the morning sun like a polished blade. Nathan Reed had never set foot inside before. He'd driven past it countless times, usually on his way to a job site, always noticing how the tower loomed above the skyline like a monument to power. Today, he wasn't there to admire it. He was there to drop a hammer. The lobby was marble and steel, echoing with the footsteps of people who thought the world revolved around their appointments. Nathan walked past them all, the manila envelope tucked under his arm. He wore no tie, no press suit, just work boots, dark jeans, and a jacket. He didn't need to look like he belonged. He was a man on a mission, and his presence carried its own authority. At the reception desk, a young woman started her rehearsed greeting. Nathan cut her short with 3 words. Victoria Caldwell. Now. Something in his voice, steady, commanding, not asking, made her hesitate. She picked up the phone, murmured into it, then pointed him toward the private elevator. The top floor was all glass and silence. Victoria's office was a cathedral of modern design. Black stone desk, walls lined with abstract art, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Victoria Caldwell stood behind the desk, phone pressed to her ear. She raised a single finger to him without breaking stride in her conversation. Yes, increase the bid by 10%. No, don't ask again. Do it. She hung up, then turned her eyes to Nathan. They were sharp, calculating, the kind of eyes that measured a man in seconds. You must be Reed, she said. Her voice was smooth but carried the weight of authority. Mitchell said you'd be stopping by. Nathan stepped forward and set the envelope on her desk. Pictures, taken in Cancun. Andrew and my wife. Victoria didn't flinch. She slid the papers out, her manicured hands precise as scalpels. One by one, she studied the photographs. Madeline and Andrew in a restaurant, kissing on the balcony, holding each other like teenagers who thought the world wasn't watching. Victoria's expression never changed. She didn't rage, didn't curse, didn't break. Her face was carved in stone. When she reached the last photo, she stacked them neatly and slid them back into the envelope. Then she picked up her phone and dialed a number. Andrew, you have 24 hours to return to Atlanta. If you don't bother coming back. She ended the call without waiting for a reply. Then she looked up at Nathan. Thank you for bringing this to me. You'll find I don't waste time or mercy. Nathan nodded once. I didn't bring it for gratitude. I brought it because men like Andrew think they can take without consequence. I'm not giving him the chance. For the first time, a faint smile touched Victoria's lips. Not warmth, approval. Good. Then we understand each other. Nathan turned to leave, boots echoing on the polished floor. He didn't ask what Victoria would do next. He didn't need to. A woman like her didn't rant or scheme. She was executed. And Andrew Bennett, the man who thought he could steal another man's wife without paying the price, had just been marked for destruction by someone who made ruin into an art form. As Nathan stepped into the elevator, the city stretched out below him, sprawling and indifferent. But he felt no indifference. He felt control. Piece by piece, he was stripping Madeline of the world she thought she owned. Custody, money, respect. Now, her new lover was about to be erased by the one person he could never outmaneuver. His wife. The elevator doors closed, and Nathan's reflection stared back at him in the polished steel. Calm, steady, unbroken. He wasn't a man clinging to scraps of pride. He was a man laying foundations for a reckoning. By the time Madeline was stretching under the Mexican sun, sipping cocktails in a wide-brimmed hat, Nathan Reed was standing in the doorway of what used to be their bedroom. The movers had arrived at dawn. 3 men in gray uniforms, efficient, wordless, already stacking boxes in the hallway. Nathan didn't touch a thing himself. He just pointed. Closet, vanity, jewelry box, photographs, drawers. The men moved like soldiers under command, wrapping glass in paper, sealing boxes with thick tape. Each thwick of the tape gun was a stroke of erasure, peeling Madeline out of the life she had walked away from. The vanity went first. The same table where she had once sat for hours, curling her hair and painting her lips, preparing for galas she insisted they attend. He watched as her perfumes were wrapped in bubble plastic, her jewelry laid carefully in padded cases, her shoes lined up in neat rows before being swallowed by cardboard. Nathan's face gave nothing away. He didn't linger on the memories, didn't breathe in the ghost of her perfume. He stood like a foreman at a demolition site, calm and resolute, overseeing the dismantling of a structure that no longer served its purpose. Downstairs, movers packed framed photos off the mantel, wedding portraits, beach vacations, family holidays. Nathan took only one, the picture of him and Leo at the park, his son perched on his shoulders, both of them laughing. That frame he slid into a drawer in his office. The rest went into boxes stamped with bold black marker. Madeline. By noon, the house was stripped of her presence. Half-empty hangers clinked together in the closet like hollow bones. The nightstand where she had kept her novels stood bare. It was as if she had never lived there at all. The last box was loaded into the truck. Nathan handed the foreman an index card with an address written in block letters. Marietta. Her parents' house. The man read it, nodded, and slammed the truck door shut. Engines roared to life. The convoy pulled away from the curb, taillights glowing red as they carried every trace of Madeline back to the family who had always treated Nathan like he wasn't good enough. He almost smiled at the thought of her parents opening their front door to find a mountain of boxes dumped on their porch. By evening, the Reed house looked different. Cleaner, lighter. Leo noticed first. "Where's Mom's stuff?" he asked, standing in the hallway with his toy dinosaur clutched in one hand. Nathan crouched, placing a steady hand on his son's shoulder. "She's not going to live here anymore, buddy. But you and me? This is still our home." Leo looked around, puzzled but not afraid. After a moment, he nodded, satisfied with his father's answer, and ran off to the living room. Nathan stood and glanced around at the bare walls, the hollow closet. For the first time since the text message, he felt something close to peace. It wasn't joy, it was order. The kind of order that comes after tearing out rot before it spreads. Meanwhile, in Cancun, Madeline's phone buzzed against the glass table beside her lounge chair. Dozens of missed calls. Voicemails from her mother, her father, her sister. She silenced the phone with a swipe of her finger, rolling her eyes, convinced it was some overblown family drama. She leaned into Andrew's shoulder and ordered another round of drinks, smug in her belief that she had escaped clean. But back in Georgia, her life was already packed in boxes, sitting on her parents' porch, waiting to greet her when she returned. She wasn't free. She was erased. Andrew Bennett's private jet landed at Hartsfield-Jackson just past midnight. He was still wearing a linen shirt from Cancun, sunburn on his neck, a trace of rum in his veins. He had cut the trip short, rattled by Victoria's icy ultimatum. He told himself she was bluffing. She always liked to test him, push him. But as the car rolled through the gates of their estate in Buckhead, dread curled in his gut. The mansion loomed ahead, lights blazing in every window. Not the warm glow of welcome, but the harsh brightness of a stage set for judgment. Andrew stepped out of the car, smoothing his shirt, forcing a grin as if confidence alone could disarm his wife. He opened the front door and froze. Victoria Caldwell sat in the center of the living room, still in her tailored navy suit from the office, legs crossed, posture regal. Around her stood 3 attorneys in dark suits, clipboards in hand, and a man Nathan instantly recognized, the head of their household security team. Beside the door, a single leather suitcase rested against the wall. Andrew tried to chuckle, his voice cracking. "Vic, come on. You know it's not what it looks like." Victoria's gaze cut him in half. "Spare me," she gestured, and one of the attorneys stepped forward, setting a thick folder on the glass coffee table. "These are divorce papers, signed and filed. Your access to accounts, cards, and holdings has already been terminated. The deed to this house has been transferred solely to my name. As of 30 minutes ago, you own nothing." Andrew's face was drained of color. "You can't." "I can. And I did." Her voice was cold iron. "Do you think you're the first man who thought he could humiliate me in public? You forgot who you married." He staggered forward, hands out. "Victoria, please. We can fix this. It was just enough." She snapped her fingers, and the security chief picked up the suitcase. "That's all you're leaving with. Clothes for a week. Everything else stays here. If you step foot on this property again, I'll have you arrested for trespassing." Andrew's bravado collapsed, leaving only a hollow man grasping at air. "Where am I supposed to go?" Victoria's expression never softened. "Anywhere that isn't my world." The attorneys began packing up their folders. The security chief opened the door. Andrew stood there, blinking, stunned. One moment he had been a wealthy husband with a mansion, a fleet of cars, and access to one of Atlanta's most powerful women. Now he was nothing but a man with a suitcase and a ruined reputation. He stumbled out onto the driveway, the heavy door shutting behind him with finality. The mansion lights stayed bright, not for him but for Victoria, the queen who had just cut her king off the board. Back in Cancun, Madeline stretched lazily in her hotel bed, reaching for her phone. The screen glared with dozens of missed calls, dozens of messages. She frowned, scrolling through alerts of declined transactions. Credit card, debit card, even her hotel tab flagged, payment required. She sat up quickly, panic rising, dialing Andrew's number. Straight to voicemail. For the first time since she sent that reckless text, a sliver of fear threaded through her chest. Andrew was gone. The money was gone. The lifeline she thought she had grabbed was snapping apart strand by strand. And she had no idea it was only the beginning. The wheels of Madeline Reed's taxi crunched against the familiar driveway in suburban Atlanta. She stepped out, dragging her carry-on, sunglasses perched on her head, the Cancun sun still clinging to her skin. She looked up, expecting the comfort of home. Instead, she froze. A sold sign stood planted in the front yard, the bold red letters screaming louder than any confrontation. A minivan sat in the driveway that wasn't hers. Through the living room window, she caught a glimpse of children's toys scattered across the floor. Children she didn't recognize. Madeline blinked, fumbled with her keys, and marched up the steps. She shoved the first key into the lock. Nothing. I tried another. The metal scraped uselessly against brass. Her hand trembled as she jangled through the entire set, but each attempt ended the same. No key fit anymore. She pounded on the door. A stranger appeared, a young mother holding a baby on her hip. Her expression was firm, not unkind, but final. "This is my house," Madeline snapped, her voice shrill, desperate. "Not anymore," the woman replied, shutting the door with a click that echoed like a gavel. Madeline staggered back down the steps, pulling out her phone. She dialed Nathan, then Andrew. Straight to voicemail, both lines. Panic clawed at her throat. She dialed her parents next. After 2 rings, her mother's brittle voice answered. "Your things are here," she said, clipped, as if every syllable was a punishment. "What? What do you mean?" Madeline's voice cracked. "Boxes, Madeline. Every dress, every shoe, every photo. Dropped on our porch like trash. You think we're happy about that? Your father's humiliated. The neighbors saw everything." The line went dead. By the time the cab pulled up in front of her parents' house in Marietta, dusk had fallen. And there it was, a mountain of boxes, neatly labeled with her name, stacked on the porch under the yellow glow of the porch light. Her father sat on a rocking chair nearby, arms crossed, jaw tight. He didn't stand to greet her. He didn't even look at her. Madeline's chest heaved as she climbed the steps, dragging her suitcase. She dropped to her knees, tearing into the top box, as if she could prove to herself it wasn't real. But inside were her dresses, folded neatly, her framed photos, her jewelry, even the perfume bottles she thought were untouchable. On top of the stack, resting like a tombstone, sat a thick envelope, legal paper, her name typed across the front in block letters. Hands trembling, she opened it. Divorce petition, custody filing, evidence exhibits. Right at the top, her own text, blown up in black and white. "Going on a vacation with my ex, don't be jealous." Her stomach dropped. She flipped through the pages, each one another slice of her life carved away. Custody to Nathan, property to Nathan, financial accounts sealed. No alimony, no visitation, nothing left. Her breath came shallow, ragged. She looked up at her father, searching for some fragment of support. But his eyes stayed fixed on the dark street beyond, cold and silent. Madeline clutched the papers to her chest, rocking slightly on her knees, the weight of her choices pressing down harder than any judge's ruling. For the first time, she understood. She hadn't just left her marriage. She had erased herself from it. The courtroom smelled faintly of wood polish and old paper. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in a cold, merciless glow. Nathan Reed sat at the petitioner's table, shoulders square, suit jacket pressed though plain. He wasn't a man dressing to impress. He was a man arriving to finish what he'd started. Beside him, Robert Hayes arranged the exhibits with calm precision. Across the aisle, Madeline sat hunched beside her court-appointed attorney, her once polished image cracked. The tan from Cancun had already faded, leaving her pale, drawn. Her hands fidgeted in her lap, nails bitten to the quick. The judge, the same no-nonsense woman who had granted Nathan temporary custody, cleared her throat. "We are here today to finalize custody and division of marital assets in the matter of Reed versus Reed." Hayes rose smoothly. "Your Honor, the foundation of our case can be summed up in 12 words." He held up a printed sheet, bold black text staring back at the room. He read aloud, "Going on a vacation with my ex, don't be jealous." The words hung in the air like a church bell tolling. The judge leaned forward, glasses slipping lower on her nose. "Mrs. Reed, did you send this message?" Madeline's voice cracked. "It was a joke, a mistake. I wasn't abandoning." Hayes cut in sharp as a blade. "Accompanied by photographic evidence, Your Honor." He slid a folder across the bench. The judge flipped through the glossy photos. Madeline and Andrew Bennett kissing in restaurants, wrapped around each other on balconies, oblivious to the camera but damning in their carelessness. The judge's expression hardened. Combined, these documents demonstrate not only abandonment, but infidelity and financial recklessness. She set the papers down, tapping them once as if sealing their fate. "The ruling is as follows. Mr. Reed retains full custody of the minor child, Leo Reed. The marital home, financial accounts, and all shared assets are awarded to Mr. Reed. Mrs. Reed is denied spousal support. Visitation is suspended indefinitely, pending review after 1 year." Madeline's attorney stammered, flipping through his notes, but the judge's gavel cut him off. Crack. "This case is closed." Nathan stood, calm, collected. No smile, no visible triumph, just steady purpose. He reached down and took Leo's small hand. His son had been coloring quietly in the corner with crayons Hayes had brought to keep him calm. "Ready for ice cream, buddy?" Nathan asked, his voice warm, steady. Leo grinned. "Yeah, chocolate." Together, they walked out of the courtroom, father and son, side by side. Behind them, Madeline slumped in her chair, head in her hands, papers scattered across the table like ashes after a fire. That night, when the house was quiet and Leo asleep, Nathan sat at the kitchen table. A single lamp cast a pool of light over the page as he wrote his final words to Madeline. His handwriting was the same as always. Neat, blocky, certain. "You wanted freedom. Now you have it." He folded the note, sealed it in an envelope, and set it aside. Then he leaned back in his chair, exhaled slowly, and let the silence of the house wash over him. Nathan Reed wasn't broken. He wasn't begging. He wasn't the man his wife thought she could discard. He was the man who had taken betrayal, forged it into a weapon, and used it to protect the only thing that mattered, his son. And in that silence, he felt no rage anymore, only peace.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.